Greetings, humans. This is David Dastmalchian.
And Leah Kilpatrick.
And we are the writers of Horror House in the Dark Horse anthology Headless Horseman.
And you are listening to the Oblivion Bar podcast.
Welcome to the Oblivion Bar podcast with your host, Chris Hacker and Aaron Knowles.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 171 of the Oblivion Bar podcast. I'm your failed actress and professional Time Splitters 2 player, Chris Hacker. And joining me is the man who puts the I in team, my co-host and BFF, Aaron Knowles.
Oh, hello, Pickle. It's me, Mum.
It's me, Barbara.
It's Barbara, your
It's
mum.
Barbara.
You coming round tomorrow?
What's the super mum? What's the line again?
Pow, super mum.
The first one. All right, everybody. As you could tell, Aaron, goodness, what you just witnessed right there is what we're going to be doing this entire episode, because for our 2024 Halloween special, we are so pleased to be covering Shaun of the Dead.
It's bass. God.
Welcome back, everybody. Again, this is one of our favorite segments of the entire year. Aaron and I are both huge Halloween fans. I would dare to say that it's my favorite holiday of the entire year. Aaron, is it your favorite as well?
No, I fucking hate it.
Really getting into that evil spirit, aren't you?
Yeah, no, I love Halloween. I've watched, I don't know why, for the last several years, I have really come into, that sounds dirty, but I've really enjoyed Halloween movies, and I've really enjoyed horror, like really like scary shit. And like, it's, I don't know, when I was growing up, I was a huge baby. Nowadays, love it.
Yeah, I think I remember when we first became friends, this is like around 2010, 2011. I don't remember us really indulging in too many horror films. There's a lot of sci-fi, a lot of action films, but it does seem like here recently, and I feel like I've always had a certain attachment to horror films, but it seems like here recently you and I have more drifted that way, even towards like the sort of schlocky horror, or just like your hits that you have when the Halloween time comes around.
Oh yeah. Already have watched like recently, The Substance, which I, definitely body horror, things like that.
Not really a Halloween film, but definitely
not really Halloween, but hey, she plays
horror.
dress up. Huh?
That's right.
Huh?
She does.
And then I watched, yesterday watched The Deliverance.
Okay.
Which I'm just gonna throw it out there. That was a stupid ass movie. I don't know what, like there's some movies that just like, oh, it went viral. Oh, it's a top movie on Netflix. Like what? Like I don't know.
It's viral marketing is all it is. That's all. Yeah. That's all it is. And everyone, speaking of seeing movies in theaters, I actually saw the movie that we're covering today for the Halloween special. I saw Shaun of the Dead in theaters, which we'll talk about here in just a moment. But before we get there, happy birthday
to whom? Shaun of the Dead.
Oh yes, of course. It's 20th anniversary, everybody. Again, we'll get to that at some point. But yeah, this is the 20th anniversary, which is why it was back in theaters. Aaron, before we get to Shaun of the Dead, though, I want you to go over our previous Halloween specials, and I'll have these all in the show notes. That way, in case anybody wants to go back. And I just anticipate you just making little Halloween noises as I'm talking throughout this episode. Yeah.
Okay,
go over our Halloween specials.
Previous Halloween specials. This is our fourth year.
It's fifth year.
Fifth.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Fifth.
1, 2, 3.
We're already on our bullshit. It's not even 5 minutes into the episode.
That got me.
You're welcome. We'll let the good times roll.
For our first Halloween special, a special co-host, Max Van Doggen, joined Chris. I was not there, unfortunately, to discuss their favorite unsung horror flicks. Off the top of the dome, Chris, can you remember one unsung horror flick that you brought up from that show?
I do. Actually, one of them was one that we covered in 2022. So everyone stick around, because when Aaron goes over the 2022 entry, that's one of them that I list.
Shut your mouth.
Shut your mouth. You're coming off stupid.
Thank you. In 2021, we discussed Frank Henenlotter's 1982 low-budget schlocky horror film, Basket Case.
And this was actually, Aaron, this was your suggestion. I'm so glad that you recommended it because it is one of those sort of, again, schlocky horror films that you kind of have to know it. You had to have seen it. You can't just take someone's word for what this movie is. You had to have seen what actually happens in that movie.
I'm going to try and redo that impression because I'm actually really proud of that. That was like, basket case. I don't know.
Like your trailer voice?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
We discussed Frank Henenlotter's basket case. I like it. In 2022, hello, kiddies. We covered the first film from the Tales from the Crypt franchise, 1995's Demon Knight.
And this is one of my favorite Dark Horse horror films of all time. I remember very vividly renting this from Blockbuster. I have the VHS cover burned into my brain. And it was one of the films that we covered in 2020. Aaron, you were nice enough to let us cover it on the show. And then going into last year's entry, Aaron, this is one that we both came together and said, this is a movie that we want to discuss because we don't think it gets enough love.
Hell yeah. Kunda, Estrata, Montase, Kanda. Last year, we highlighted a recent favorite, which was Fede Alvarez's 2013 reimagining of Evil Dead.
A very good episode. Love last year's Halloween special. We're going to keep these good vibes going here with our very first. I mean, you can make an argument for Basket Case for being a comedy, but this is our first comedy of. Well, actually, that's not true because you could also make a case for Demon Knight too. Demon Knight's sort of a
Demon
comedy
Knight was
as well.
that Billy Zane was fucking golden in that one.
Yeah, Billy Zane is like one of the best villains in like horror history.
Yeah,
from this silly. Like he's the best part of the movie. Like,
yeah,
the best part. All right. Well, anyway, we'll get into our next entry here with Shaun of the Dead. But first, everyone, if you want to support the Oblivion Bar podcast, consider checking out our Patreon. Of course, for your support, you gain access to a bonus episode each week called The Grid, behind the scenes look at how we prepare for each show with our episode transcripts, Patreon polls, which actually, Aaron, funny enough, that's how we determined our Halloween special this year. We put it out on Patreon and asked everyone to vote on which movie they want us to cover for our Halloween special. And Shaun of the Dead won by a landslide. So...
shocker.
And honestly, Aaron and I were secretly very excited by that.
Yeah, we're like in the back corner, like in the back of the original.
We're like, please, Shaun of the Dead. Shaun of the Dead.
Yes.
And also a whole bunch of other exclusive goodies over on Patreon. Give it a shot with a 7-day free trial over at patreon.com/Oblivion Bar Pod, or just go check out the show notes. Again, we'll have all of our previous Halloween specials in there, as well as a way to support the show if that's what you want to do. Enough preamble. Aaron, let's go ahead and get into our 2024 Halloween special covering Shaun of the Dead.
Main topic.
Alrighty, here we are covering Shaun of the Dead. Now, Aaron, a little bit of setup here before we get into this actual, again, we have a hard time sort of summarizing what this segment is outside of more of just a celebration, right? Like that's what these Halloween specials are each year. It's not really a review because that wouldn't be fun. We're not here to critique these films. If nothing else, it is, again, sort of just like us. It gives us an opportunity to celebrate these movies that we really love. And as we sort of spoke on a moment ago, Shaun of the Dead is collectively just one of our favorite films of all time.
Absolutely. I think the fun thing about doing stuff like this and not this movie, just like you said, has been reviewed time and time again. People write about it. People talk about it. People homage it. People do everything for this film. We're just fans. We have no stake in the game. We're just here to tell people what we fucking love about it because it's one of our favorite films. And if you don't do that on a podcast, then what are you having a podcast for if you just don't want to talk about the things that you love?
Absolutely.
You know, and maybe somebody else can relate. Maybe you're like, oh yeah, that's a great reason. Makes me love it more. Or maybe I fucking hate this movie. I don't know if I've met anybody that's ever disliked this movie though. Have you?
No, it's funny you say that because we just spoke on it a moment ago. AMC re-released Shaun of the Dead in IMAX and in Dolby it was a 1-day release for the 20th anniversary. This movie came out in 2004. It, of course, now is 2024. So it was really cool to see Edgar Wright talk about. They had like a little segment before the showing of the film. Yeah. And this movie has got a great soundtrack, a lot of great sort of jump scares, which I'm not usually a fan of in horror films, but the jump scares sort of play to like comedy effect, which is really cool. And it was just cool to hear Edgar Wright talk about all that on a giant Dolby screen. And in that, like, again, if you've watched the film in Dolby, it's like thundering, the music and the sound effects. It just made for a really cool viewing experience. And I brought my girlfriend Olivia to that because she had never seen Shaun of the Dead. and she loved it too. So
Yeah.
it was like you said, it's hard to find folks who just don't automatically love this movie.
You know, and I know we're going to talk about this probably a little bit more, but I want to say, when was the last time that you watched this?
It was actually it was during that re-release, so it was about a month ago.
Okay, so that was so a month ago for you. So I watched it again today. I watched it probably about a month ago when I found out we were going to be doing this, but then I was like, I'm just like eating lunch. Let me just put on Shaun of the Dead again, and it's just like it never gets old.
Because I love her. All right, gay. Do something! Wait there. Hold it there. I'm coming! Here they come!
Like there's something in it you can like pick up every single time, and I think the one thing that I picked up this time is the soundtrack and how good it is.
Yeah,
it is such a good soundtrack.
Agreed. And I think it's funny. I don't know if I actually have a note for this, but the title screen when they're showing like
credits.
Well, the opening credits, the title music is actually from Dawn of the Dead, the 1978 Dawn of the Dead. So, and again, as you said, there's multiple songs in this that when I hear them out in the wild, I immediately think of this movie. I want to ask you really quick. I don't really have a note for it here in our transcript, but I'm just curious. What do you think this movie has sort of stayed in the culture? Like, you know, it remains pervasive when you talk to fans of Edgar Wright's or Simon Pegg's or Nick Frost or just like zombie films in general, even though they never call them zombies in this movie. Why do you think this movie has sort of stayed the test of time?
I think the only reason that it continues to be and I don't even want to call it a cult classic because it's more than just a cult following.
Yeah, it's beyond that now. Yeah.
It's beyond that. I think it's because so many zombie movies take themselves like so seriously. Mm-hmm. They've set into place these rules. I mean, and there's quite a few movies that don't. You know, Zombieland, for instance. Zombieland's a fun one that does not take itself seriously, but also it's kind of like I think it kind of like loses its edge, its comedic edge a bit throughout some of it. So that's why it's not as held as highly as this one. Whereas this is just again, we're going to talk about this later in a few minutes, but this is just a buddy film. Mm-hmm. This isn't a zombie film. This is a buddy film. This is a rom-zom-com buddy film that is really about a friendship and how when the world dies, can friendships and relationships last that?
Yeah, who are you going to go out and save first, right?
Yeah.
Like when you're put in these situations, who do you go out and try to protect? And this movie is a great example of this, where a lot of times in times of turmoil or times of, you know, the world's up against you, you sort of realize who you are or who you've become throughout life. And I think the perfect example of this is Shaun. Like, Shaun is one of the greatest examples of this idea because in the real world, in the mundane of the normal life, Shaun is sort of an underachiever. He's someone who has no motivation, someone who is afraid to achieve. He's just kind of okay with his normal life.
Yeah, he's established himself in mediocrity, and that's okay.
Right. And then, of course, as the world changes, as the apocalypse happens, and as he realizes that folks around him need him, that's where he thrives, right? And I think to kind of build off what the question I asked you, of course, I wouldn't ask you if I had an answer for it. I think the reason why this movie has pervaded its way throughout culture over the last 20 years and continued to be so loved is how smart this movie is. From the visual gags to the script, just breakneck, you blink and you miss it type of humor. I feel like every time I watch this movie, and I've seen this movie well over 20, 30, probably closer to 30 times now, I feel like I find something new that I really love, you know? Like I remember in this most recent viewing, again, when we went and saw it last month in the Dolby Theater, the part that really tickled me this time was when Nick Frost's character hands him a beer, and someone goes, "You and your boyfriend," and he goes, "Not my boyfriend," and he hands him the beer, and he goes, the cooler's the cooler's turned off, it's a little warm. He goes, "Thanks, babe," and winks at him. I don't know why that tickled me so much this time, but that part really got me. And there are multiple examples of this.
Just gave him the slip. Wasn't difficult. They're not all that.
Well, how did you get in?
There is a back door, David.
I tried to tell you before you went and smashed the window.
Well, I wasn't the one who was blowing our cover by having a tiff with my boyfriend.
He's not my boyfriend. Might be a bit warm, the cooler's off. Thanks, babe.
Do you feel at all relatable in our friendship?
100%. Everyone right now, if you've never met Aaron and I in person, I will tell you that the relationship between Shaun and Ed in this movie is Aaron and I. And I am Shaun and Aaron is Ed. Am I wrong? Is that not accurate?
No, you're not wrong. God damn it. It's sad to be the Ed in this relationship.
Ed is cool. I like it.
It's sad to be the Ed in any relationship, but you know,
you can do the monkey impersonation though. That's the thing. Aaron, why don't you go over the summary here in case anybody,
right.
If for some reason people are listening to this episode and don't know what Shaun of the Dead is, here's for the layman, everybody.
Yeah, so Shaun of the Dead is a rom-zom-com. If you don't understand that, I'll fucking explain it to you right now. All right, it's a romantic zombie comedy. Rom-zom-com, okay? Rom-zom-com. That centers around the uneventful, aimless lives of a London electronics salesman and his lumpy roommate. Fuck, am I lumpy?
No.
Jesus, okay.
That's
I'm a
Ed
little
specific.
Lumpy. Okay. Nothing seems to be going right when it is all disrupted by the zombie apocalypse.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and as we said a moment ago, 2024, they had the 20th anniversary re-release at AMC, which was great. The title, Shaun of the Dead, is a reference to George R. Romero's 1978 film, Dawn of the Dead, of course. We all know that. There's also a shout out to another British zombie film, 28 Days Later. Additionally, the restaurant Fulci's is a reference to an Italian splatter film director, Lucio Fulci, I think is how you say that.
Yeah. There's also, I remember reading also, there's a reference to From Dusk Till Dawn. Like a projected title for this originally was From Dusk Till Shaun.
Yes, I think there's something about tea in there too. I don't remember exactly. Simon Pegg and Edgar Wright considered a sequel that would replace zombies with another monster, but decided against it as they were pleased with this movie as a standalone product and thought too many characters died to continue the story. Wright and Pegg both say that the following films are sequels to the ones before it. And when I say those films, I'm actually talking about the Cornetto trilogy, which we'll talk about here in just a moment. And sort of off to the side here, we've got Quentin Tarantino, of course, famed director of Pulp Fiction and Reservoir Dogs and all the other, you guys know all 9 of his films, dubbed this as one of his top 20 favorite films since 1990. So that's a pretty big deal. Quentin Tarantino is sort of a student of the game. He knows good movies when he sees them. And the fact that Shaun of the Dead is in there is pretty awesome.
Quentin Tarantino, not to go off on a tangent, he's a hard guy to like pin down whether you like him, you love him or you hate him.
100. You just nailed it on the head. Every time I hear him talk, I watch one of his movies and I'm like, God, this guy's a master. He's one of the best of all time. It's so easy to see that. Then you hear him talk, I'm like, you're kind of a dick.
Yeah. No, he's not kind of, very much a dick.
And we'll talk about him here in just a bit. Edgar Wright, of course, the director of this film, the complete opposite. One of the most likable dudes. Every time you see him talk about anything, specifically movies and music, I think he is like one of the most enduring people. I think I could just listen to him talk about anything. In preparation for this episode, Aaron, I actually went back and watched the audio commentary, of the film with Edgar and Simon Pegg. So it was so cool to hear them talk about. You love him so
fucking much. Go ahead and break down the Cornetto trilogy for us.
You know what? I will, because sometimes this trilogy.
So much, why don't you marry him?
It's referred to as the Cornetto trilogy or the the Blood and Ice Cream trilogy. Have you ever heard it called the Blood and Ice Cream trilogy?
Never.
No, it's always the Cornetto trilogy for me.
Yeah.
This trilogy includes, of course, Shaun of the Dead from 2004, Hot Fuzz in 2007, and then The World's End in 2013, all co-written by Edgar Wright and Simon Pegg. Now, these films do not share any storyline, of course, but instead are named after the repeated passing references to cornettos, which is an ice cream cone frozen treat.
Fucking delicious.
They're so good.
They're so
now, Aaron,
good.
let me ask you this.
Yes.
Before we kind of get into the meat and potatoes of Shaun of the Dead, I want to kind of talk about the
chunks.
That's right. The brains and stomach fluids of Shaun of the Dead. Can we talk about the Cornetto trilogy really quick? Where does Shaun of the Dead sort of land on that top 3?
I honestly have a hard time because there's I guess it's based on my mood. Majority of the time, Shaun of the Dead is number 1.
Okay.
But there's every once in a while, there's a moment where I watch. Hot Fuzz is
Hot Fuzz is a very close second.
It's either a close second or it's like tied for first.
Sure.
I fucking love Hot Fuzz so much for the greater good.
For the greater good.
big bushy beard. Actually, to be honest, I think Hot Fuzz might be my number one. I'm just gonna fuck it. Number one.
On the record.
Yeah.
Hot Fuzz is
on the
number
record.
one.
Hot Fuzz is number one, Shaun of the Dead is number two, and The World's End, which I really do enjoy, but it's just it's not one that I want to jump back into every once in a while. I'll tell you this, anytime Shaun of the Dead or Hot Fuzz is on, I will watch them. But more than likely, if it was a choice between Hot Fuzz and Shaun of the Dead, I would probably put on Hot Fuzz first.
Yeah, I agree. I think it is very close. I think it's 1A, 1B between Shaun of the Dead and Hot Fuzz, although I think Shaun of the Dead, for me, is maybe slightly higher, just a little bit. I really love Hot Fuzz. You know I love Hot Fuzz. And then, again, as you said, The World's End is also very entertaining, but it's just kind of like a distant third for no real specific reason. I think it's just as fun, just as sort of lovable. There's moments in that movie that are just as touching as what we see in Shaun of the Dead and in Hot Fuzz. But I don't know. There's just something about Shaun of the Dead and Hot Fuzz that really speaks to me.
I'm gonna have to go back. I think part of it for me might just simply because the Simon Pegg's character in The World's End, in every other movie, he's kind of he is a little bit cocky, but he's like just kind of confident. Whereas in World's End, his character is more of a cocky asshole, and like nobody really likes him.
He's a lot more selfish in the third one for sure.
Yeah, and the other thing is, and I could be wrong. I might be. Don't take this for cement facts right here. I'm pretty sure that The World's End came out around a time where there were a lot of like alien focused movies.
Mm-hmm.
What's the other one? It was like Neighborhood Watch. Did you ever see that one?
Oh yeah,
the guy from the
Ben
IT
Stiller
crowd.
guys.
Yeah, Ben Stiller. I'm pretty sure it came around the same time. So like I just feel like that one kind of got like washed over a little bit as well.
Sure. Okay, so let me ask you another bigger question here. Where does Shaun of the Dead land on your favorite Edgar Wright films? Not the Cornetto trilogy excluded. You know, you got Scott Pilgrim in there, Baby Driver, Last Night in Soho. Let's even throw Spaced in there, the TV show that was on BBC. Like, where does Shaun of the Dead land on the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 films that he's done?
I'd probably go with maybe third.
Okay. What's ahead of it?
Obviously, Scott Pilgrim versus the World.
Love Scott Pilgrim.
That is one of my all-time favorite movies that I could watch over and over and over again. And then obviously Hot Fuzz is just above that. And then I think that's really about it. Everything else kind of cascading after that.
Yeah, I think for me, I think Shaun of the Dead is probably number one. And then a very, very close second would probably be Hot Fuzz, then Scott Pilgrim, and then like very, very close to Scott Pilgrim, Baby Driver. I saw Baby Driver when that movie first came out back in 2017. I saw that movie 3 times before it actually even hit theaters. I went to 3 separate early screeners to see this movie.
I know how much you love Baby Driver, and I don't know why I know that you love that movie so much. Like Baby Driver and Whiplash. Like those are like several of the movies. Like you just fucking love those movies, man.
I mean, is he retarded?
Retarded means slow. Was he slow?
No.
You don't sound retarded to me. He's a good kid and devil behind the wheel. What the hell else more do you need to know?
For a while, Baby Driver was one of those movies that I had to show everybody just to kind of get there. Now, the movie's gotten a little bit more problematic because some of the actors that are in that movie, specifically the main actor, and then obviously Kevin Spacey in it as well.
The main actor, what happened to him?
Ansel Elgort, I think is how you say his name. He was sort of suspected for doing some nefarious things. He got caught up in the Me Too stuff, but I think he's sort of eluded it now. I don't know. I think he may have just been suspected of thing. Nothing actually came out of it. But anyway, point being is that it's awesome. And then also, like we just said a moment ago, Shaun of the Dead, Aaron's number 3. Shaun of the Dead for me is maybe number 1. I think it is number 1. Yeah.
I like how you like when for the people can't see his face right now. He's got like a pirate kind of face going on. Like, maybe number 1. You know, like he's really thinking about it.
This is
number
hard.
1, Shaun of the Dead.
Edgar Wright is one of my favorite directors of all time. So to try to categorize the films and stuff that he's done, it's tough. Like I want to get that right, of course. So Aaron, talk a little bit about Edgar Wright here. We got some fun facts here, not only with Edgar Wright, but also with Shaun of the Dead.
Okay, so during the Remembering Z-Day montage, there's a long shot of the zombies walking through a park. Edgar is the one in black who falls over himself. He also makes a voice cameo as the host of Fulci's Italian restaurant. Simon Pegg and Edgar Wright were also the minds behind the cult favorite British sitcom Spaced, which ran from 1999 to 2001.
Real quick, have you seen Spaced?
I have not seen Spaced. It is on my to-watch list.
Okay, I have the DVD. So I just to sort of expose myself and showcase how much of a DVD, Blu-ray, 4K snob I am, I only have 2 DVDs in my entire collection. Everything else is a Blu-ray and up. The only 2 DVDs I have are the first season of Tales from the Crypt and Spaced season 1 and 2. So yeah, it's one of those ones that it's awesome. If you've never seen Space, everybody, Aaron included, go watch it.
I know it's been on my list for like a long time because I've been really wanting to.
I think it's currently on Amazon. So if you want to watch it, it is on Amazon.
So Shaun of the Dead was inspired by Art, an episode of Spaced. This episode involves Peg's character hallucinating a zombie invasion after playing the video game Resident Evil 2 while under the influence of drugs.
Yes. And Aaron, I think you know this. I don't know if everyone listening to this right now, but Resident Evil 2, one of my favorite games of all time. Back in the day, I used to try to speed run that thing as quickly as I could. I would just go on easy mode and just see how quickly I could get through the game. But yeah, that's interesting. And that's a great episode of Space as well.
I don't know if that's the definition of speed running, but
I mean, it's not the speed running in the sense of like what people do. Like people will like do 3 backflips in Mario Odyssey and somehow get to the very end. But like now I would just like, we would all just chug Mountain Dew Code Red and see how quickly we could get through it. Yeah,
I'm all hyped up. Many of the zombie extras were recruited through the Spaced Out fan website, which was dedicated to Spaced superfans.
So again, a lot of Spaced references. And if you look at sort of the filmography of Edgar Wright, there is a bit of a gap between A Fistful of Fingers in 95 and Shaun of the Dead in 2004. And that's because Simon Pegg and Edgar Wright were working on Spaced. Now I know there was like a rumored season 3 for a bit, but now again, if you've seen the series, you know that they could never go back to it. They've aged out of their roles. Everybody has, because Jessica Stevenson, who plays Yvonne in this, is also obviously in Spaced. So people will see her and automatically know where she's from. I cannot recommend people enough to go see Spaced. I think it's one of those shows that everyone should check out, especially if you're a fan of Edgar Wright's.
So the cast of Shaun of the Dead is as follows: Simon Pegg as Shaun, Nick Frost as Ed, Kate Ashfield as Liz. Bye. Lucy Davis as Diane, Dylan Moran as David, Bill Nighy as Philip, Penelope Wilton as Barbara, Jessica Stevenson as Yvonne, Peter Serafinowicz as Pete, and Rafe Spall as Noel.
Pete. He could be dead or still pissed off at you.
What does he yell up the stairs? Hey,
oi, prick.
Oi, cunt, or oi, prick, something like that.
Here's something I didn't know until we started doing a little bit of research for this episode. Shaun's last name is actually Riley. It can be seen on a poster behind Shaun's little disc jockey area. It's back when he used to be a DJ. And according to Simon Pegg, his reaction to Barbara dying in the film is actually authentic. He imagined this scene as if his own mother was being killed. And after her death seen in the film, both Simon Pegg and Nick Frost cried real tears together.
Come back? She's not going anywhere. Well, she'll change. She's my mum. She's a zombie. Don't say that! Move aside. I'm going to count to 3. 1, 2, 3. Don't point that gun at my mum!
Shaun, calm down!
Don't point that gun at Barbara!
And don't exacerbate things!
What does that mean?
This isn't exactly fair.
Here.
Thank you.
It's okay.
Please, can we just stop and think about this?
Tell him to put the gun down! Look, Lizzie, she's going to change. You know I'm right. And when she does, she'll come back and she'll kill all of us. That's what your ex can't seem to realize. That's what this is about.
It's kind of dark, but I guess channel however you got to, right?
When Ed is being bitten by a zombie near the end of the film, the sound effect of his scream is taken from the character of Windows from John Carpenter's The Thing. The zombie that Shaun and Ed find in their garden is Mary, the checkout girl from this movie's credit montage. A short story detailing her transformation to one of the undead was featured in issue number 1384 of the classic British science fiction comic 2000 AD. The issue went on sale April 7, 2004. The strip was called There's Something About Mary and was written by Simon Pegg and Edgar Wright with art by Fraser Irving.
And, you know, kind of speaking on Mary in this segment, we obviously see her later on in the movie as well. But why I think this movie is so great is the way that it foreshadows scenes and moments that we're going to see throughout the film. So like there'll be a quick throwaway something in the background, or someone will say something, and then it'll kind of come to fruition later on in the movie. So here are some of our favorite foreshadowing moments throughout the movie. Again, hilarious script, but also it's sort of, again, I actually had to warn Olivia when we went to go see it, a blink and you miss it moment. This movie does not slow down for you at all. It's a quick, snappy, just like what, like they're saying things and you have to keep up, which is why I love it so much.
It's the scenery, it's the dialogue, it's the pacing, everything, the music. It's just everything plays into what's going to happen further or like right next. It's so much fun.
Basically, nothing in this movie is an accident. Yes. Everything that is put in this script is so tight that everything put in this movie, there's a reason for it. And usually, not only is there a reason for it, but it'll be called back to at some point later in the movie. So according to the audio commentary to the film, Wright highlights when Ed attempts to cheer Shaun up at the Winchester with plans to binge drink, he is actually summarizing the events of the next day, which is, of course, Z-Day, entirely in drinking references. So in Bloody Mary, like we just said a moment ago, is the checkout girl named Mary in the back garden. We have Bite the King's Head, which is Philip being bit on the day of Z-Day. We have The Couple, which is Dave and Diane, who we'll meet the next day. Little Princess is Liz, which is, of course, Shaun's girlfriend. Stagger Back, which is impersonating zombies. And then Bar for Shots, which is firing the rifle at the Winchester. When Shaun and Ed are listening to Electro, Pete tells Ed that if he wants to live like an animal, he can live in the shed. Later, Shaun keeps Ed in the shed at the end of the movie, and after he becomes a zombie, Ed also says, next time I see him, he's dead. The next time Ed sees Pete, he is a zombie.
Yep.
Shaun tells the football kid, you're dead, when he almost hits him with a soccer ball in that one long continuous shot at the beginning of the film. In the next long take, we see that kid. He is, of course, in fact, dead. And then when Diane tells David that she knows that they've only been together after Liz rejected him in college, she was there to pick up the pieces, foreshadowing what happens later when David is killed at the Winchester. She grabbed his leg or something.
Fuck, I didn't even notice that one.
I can't remember exactly what it is, but she grabs his leg or arm or something.
Yeah. Oh man, I didn't even realize that. That's pretty brutal. Oh man.
Apparently, I don't have it in here, but apparently there is like a deleted scene or something where Diane actually survives. So she goes into the crowd, she survives, and she ends up like going up in a tree and survives off that limb that she takes from David. And she like survives a couple days through the zombie apocalypse off that leg. And then when everyone's, when the Z-Day is over, they become like pen pals with Liz and Shaun. Interesting.
So near the beginning of the movie, Ed is playing on the PlayStation 2. Shaun directs him, top left, reload, good shot. When the gang are in the Winchester pub and Shaun is firing the zombies, Ed repeats exactly what Shaun instructed him to do during Time Splitters 2 from 2002, which actually was a super fun game. When Shaun is at work, he shows a couple the televisions. As he's flipping through the channels, we see Trisha Goddard with a woman guest and a game show. At the end of the movie, the same woman in the game show will be seen on the television. The woman who is dating a zombie, and zombies attached to bungee cords. So last, when Pete is ranting at Ed for keeping him awake with his electro music, he drops the line, "You want to live like an animal? Go live in the shed, you thick fuck."
This is sort of a build off what we were talking about earlier.
Yeah. When we last see Ed, he's chained up living in Shaun's shed, and definitely Shaun is wearing his tie like a bandana, which is how he's wearing it at the climax.
Actually, I might pop into the garden for a bit.
Go on then.
2 seconds.
Player 2 has entered the game.
Ed!
You've got red on you, which is like, I didn't, again, I think this last time I watched it was how many times I hear them say, actually.
It's like 3 or 4 times, right?
Yeah, it's not just once. It's you've got red on you multiple. It's one of the most quotable movies in the history of motion pictures. Here are some of our favorite lines from Shaun of the Dead.
How do you want to do this? Do you want to play certain roles or do you want to just read them off?
Yes. So we'll do this one by one, and then we'll take the roles as they go.
Okay. All right. So you start us off.
Yes. So this is the scene between Shaun and David. David, kill the queen.
What?
The jukebox. As Mr. Sloan always says, there is no I in team, but there is an I in pie, and there's an I in meat pie. Anagram of meat is T. I don't know what he's talking about.
All right. This one, Ed says, we're coming to get you, Barbara. And the fun fact is that this is actually a callback to 1968's Night of the Living Dead. This is someone says that in that film as well.
Do you want your messages?
What?
Well, your mum rang about you going around town tomorrow night, And then Liz rang about the two of you eating out tonight. And then your mom rang back to see if I wanted to eat her out tonight.
What? Oh, he sells a bit of weed now and again, you know? You sold Puff.
Yeah, once at college. To you.
I love in that scene how Pete like is sort of giggling until he goes, at college, to you. See, you don't need Liz to have a good time.
Oh, don't, man.
No, go ahead. Look at me. Can I just say one more thing? I'm not going to say, you know, there's plenty of more fish in the sea. I'm not going to say if you love her, let her go. And I'm not going to bombard you with cliches. But you know what I am going to say?
It's not the end of the world.
Sorry, we're closed.
All right, well, we're getting near the end of this thing. Aaron, again, we could just go back and forth with quotes and all the things. I want to kind of just ask you, and we sort of touched on this a little bit earlier, but I want to sort of get the final thoughts included here. Why do you think you and I continue to go back to this movie? Why do you think it continues to surprise us? Is there anything particular that maybe we didn't cover here that you want to go over, or anything to that like?
This film is an interesting, like, just kind of look at the film industry itself. You know, it's not an expensive movie. It's not a multi-million dollar. It's not $1 billion movie. It's not a hundreds of $1 million movie to make, you know?
Right.
But it's a great film. And this is one that needs to be brought into the conversation when it comes to films, when it comes to like good, I'm even going to call it a good horror film.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's a comedy horror romantic film that
rom-com.
Yeah. Rom-com. And it's really one that, you know, a lot of films try to be two things, but very few films try to be three things. And I just think with all of that kind of mixed together, this is a fluke of cinema.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this is one, like, you're not going to find many movies that do this, that can do this, that can reach the audience that it does with everything that it tries to do and successfully does. And I find that to be just a statement to Edgar Wright, to Simon Pegg, to the cast itself, and just a lot of the choices that were made in this, because it's a smart film. And I say there's quite a few films that are really held up to a high standard and are really held in, you know, in high praise. You know, like movies like Memento.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Memento's the same way. It's one that stands out when I think about Shaun of the Dead. It was not an expensive film. It was not. It did not have a big cast. You know, it had a great soundtrack. It had a great timing. It had great dialogue, and still racks up there with some of the best films ever. So like Shaun of the Dead just kills it, pardon the pun, but it does just across the board.
Yeah, I agree with you. And to sort of go on what you're saying here, I mean, this movie cost $6 million to make. And I know in the audio commentary, Edgar and Simon both talk about like how they had to like really pitch this movie to Universal, to, I think it was Rogue Pictures as well. Big Talk Productions were a couple of the other studios that they had to sort of pitch this thing to, and they had no one believing in it. They, you know, this is sort of, you know, horror films are one of those movies that you can sort of throw nothing at, and then if you get a big return on them, that's great. But this was one of those ones I'm sure that, you know, I'm going to guess, I don't know this for a fact, but Universal didn't really believe in. But again, to Edgar Wright and to Simon Pegg's credit, this movie is just one of the funniest, smartest movies that you can show someone in terms of, again, like a masterclass in how to make incredibly entertaining horror. And again, comedy is not easy to anybody. Like they always say that comedy is one of the hardest genres to make because everyone has a different sort of perspective on what is funny. But I think, again, if you show this movie to 10 people, I would dare to say that 9 to 10 of them would all find something somewhat funny in this movie for sure.
Yeah, I don't trust anybody that doesn't really like this movie. Cannot.
This is our litmus test.
They cannot find something enjoyable about this film. There's right. I just don't think we'll get along. I challenge, find somebody after you listen to this episode, I challenge you to go find somebody that does not like this show and have them write into oblivionbarpod@gmail.com. All right, and fucking tell us why you don't like that fucking movie. All right. Tell me, write it to me, to Aaron or to Chris, and just, you know, fucking, I gotta know. Chris, do you honestly think that there's somebody out there that doesn't like this movie?
You know, I would be surprised, honestly. Like, again, we always say that, like, always go check things out for yourself. You know, not everyone's going to like everything.
Yeah.
But again, Shaun of the Dead is one of those movies that I think everyone can enjoy. Whether you're a horror fan, whether you're a romance fan, something we didn't talk about a lot is sort of the romance between Liz and Shaun in this movie. And I think it is one of those ones where all Liz was asking for, which is the fucking bare minimum, was for Shaun to show a little initiative. And I think he proves it in this movie of like, you know,
Yeah.
he did what he had to do to save his people that he loved.
That's probably another relatable thing why people enjoy this film.
Yeah.
You know, and it's because the hero of this film is not some guy who is athletically inclined, who is like a genius, who has superpowers, who's military trained. No, it's a fucking dude that works at like an electronics store who's got a stain on his shirt and he's just trying to get back with his girlfriend.
Yeah.
You know, it's so relatable. It's so understanding. And it's so like, you know what? It's like, I'm going to wake up tomorrow. And I think a lot of us feel like that too. I think there's been times in our life where we're like, fuck, I'm going to wake up tomorrow and I'm going to be the best version of myself that I could ever be. And it's like, fuck, like, is it too late? Like the world's already over. What does it matter? Like, what's the point? But no, like and I think that's another thing this is a good date movie because like anybody in that movie, any partner that goes sees this film can look and be like, you know what? Is the person who's at my left or right, are they going to be the person that I need them to be when the time comes?
Yeah.
That's the litmus test. That's the test that we all need to be asking ourselves. Like I am so tired of, and I don't know if you've had this discussion or if you ever had an argument. I know we're going off on a weird tangent here, Chris, but I got this is like bringing up some things for me. Have you ever been in a relationship, Chris, where the conversation has turned into the expectations of what they like, of who they want you to be versus what
they don't want who you are. They
don't want who you are.
They want you to be.
And I don't know if and here's another question that kind of caveats off that. Have you ever been in a relationship with somebody who watches a lot of reality television?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And whenever they watch reality television, you can just tell when it starts to seep in and it starts taking a hold and starts asking these questions.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or motivating these questions.
Sure.
Like that's the bullshit that I'm tired of.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying it's happening in my life right now, but it's happened before. And it's just like, you know what? When the time comes and the world's fucking ending and the zombies are killing everybody, are you going to be fucking worried about if I fucking tagged you in a post on Instagram?
Right.
It doesn't fucking matter.
And this movie is so built on the relationships of these characters, aren't they? I mean, think about like the relationship between Shaun and Ed. One guy who is trying to do his best and the other one who is just like Shaun has sort of accepted his role as mediocrity in the life of his, day to day. And then Ed is just sort of, he's like swimming in that pool. He loves just not doing shit. Right. And then you have like, of course, Shaun and Liz. Like Shaun wants to be in a relationship, but he's not willing to put in the effort for it. And Liz wants more. And then there's Shaun with his mom, with Diane. With Shaun and Barbara, Shaun is sort of a mama's boy. And like the only thing he can think about when this all is going down is how he's going to save his mom. The caveat to that is Shaun having to put up with his stepdad. Bill Nye in this movie. Bill Nye is one of the best parts of this movie because he's like this unemotional, rock solid oak tree of a stepdad who never showed Shaun any love until it was too late.
Well, again, and I go back to the perception of character in this movie. Everybody in this movie has a different perception of what they want from somebody else in this, and a different perception, a different expectation.
Mm-hmm.
Like Shaun was protective of his mother and could not accept Philip as his father. But Philip was doing his best and he was trying, and he may not be the best at it, but he was trying. It's the same with Liz. Liz wanted more from Shaun, and Shaun was honestly trying, but he just is not the best at being in a relationship.
I mean, can we say that he was doing his best, really?
I think that in his life, like maybe he had, maybe there was more to that than what was again, there's expectations and then there's reality.
Yeah.
You could look at anybody and be like, listen, I just don't see what you're giving me. I don't see the effort being put in there. And it's like, you know what? Like I have a lot going on, and your bandwidth may be high and you got a lot, that you can give out to everybody. My bandwidth may not be as high as yours,
Sure.
but I'm doing my best. But again, it's about expectations. Again, Philip was doing his best, but he wasn't. To Shaun, he wasn't giving his best. And that
he's part of the toxic masculinity era of old men.
Exactly. But he truly did love him. And it took him until the end to see that. Same with the relationship between Shaun and Liz.
Yeah.
You know, Shaun may have been somewhat stuck in mediocrity, but he was trying to be like at certain times, like do what he could, because he wasn't being the same as Ed. He wasn't sitting on his ass, but he had an Ed in his life.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah. I guess Ed and Liz sort of represented two different paths for Shaun in a way.
Mm-hmm.
Like he could move on and sort of progress in his life with Liz, or he could sort of stay in the muck with Ed. So, and I know how hard that is sometimes when you have friends in your life where you're like, oh man, I could do so much more, but God, I really love palling around with this guy over here, you know?
Ouch.
Looking at you, Aaron. Looking at you.
It hurts real deep. Hurts real deep.
All right. Well, I think that'll do it for our Halloween special 2024. Again, if you can't tell, we love this movie, and I think we could talk about it for much longer. But I think, again, as Aaron said, if you don't love Shaun of the Dead already, we can't help you. I think you need to seek help elsewhere if you don't love Shaun of the Dead for whatever reason.
Unhelpable.
Unhelpable. You've got red on you, and it's from us.
You are the pulp in the orange juice, and not many people like you.
Well, we hope everybody has a great Halloween. We're going to release this the day of Halloween. So if you're listening to this on October 31st, go out there, get yourself some candy, be safe, dress up, do all the things. We hope everybody has a great Halloween. Again, Aaron and I absolutely love this holiday. Like it's our favorite all year. And again, this is one of our favorite segments each year here on the Oblivion Bar. It gives us a reason to talk about horror, which is not something we often get to do. So it's a fun little segment that we enjoy doing. Aaron, is there anything you want to say about the Halloween special before we get out of here?
Yeah, boy. That's all I wanted to do.
That's us clanking our cricket and our shovel together. Yeah. All right.
No, love the Halloween episode. Definitely want to get, I don't know, again, like we kind of talked about in the beginning of the episode, I'm really getting into horror. I tried watching Longlegs.
Mm-hmm.
Fucking slow. I gotta like put it
Didn't
back
love that
on.
one?
I want to love it, but it's like the slowest version of Silence of the Lambs that I've ever seen. So like I'm gonna finish it, but I don't know if it's one of those movies where like everybody's like, oh, it's amazing, scary movie of the year, and I'm like, okay, we'll see. Sure.
It's not the best horror film of the year. The First Omen is the best horror film of the year, but I think Longlegs is up there. It's like number 2 or 3.
Okay, and that's from your opinion.
That's my opinion. Yeah.
Okay.
Go watch The First Omen.
Okay.
That's a good one. All right. Take us out of here, Aaron.
All right. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Subscribe to our podcast, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, Audible, iHeartRadio, wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. That's where we are. Thank you to our patrons, Alex. It's when you go in the hallway. Mm-hmm. Thank you to our patrons, Alex, Alice, Aaron, Botter, Brad, Chris S, Chris Y, Christy, David, Elliot, George, Yanni, Greg, Haley, Ham6, Jake H, Jeremy, Kenny, Kyle, Lucy, Mac, Miles, Mike, Olivia, Ryan, Robert, Travis, Zach, and Brad and Lisa from Comic Book Counseling. If you want to support the show without spending any money, a follow on your preferred podcasting platform and a 5-star rating and or review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify helps the show a ton. Follow us on social media, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Blue Sky, and Threads at Oblivion Bar Pod. You can find official merch of the show, brand new stuff.
Got new ones.
Brand new for the show is on our website, oblivionbarpodcast.com. Thank you, KXD Studios. Thank you, KXD Studios, for all our Oblivion Bar art here.
Don't
he's
you
at
know?
Don't you know he's at KXD Graphics on Instagram. Thank you, Dream Kid, for all of our musical themes. Thank you, DJ Skyback, for our grid theme. Don't forget to tip your bartenders 20% or more, or I will do the entire thing next time in a terrible Australian accent. That is a threat.
That is not a threat. That is a promise. Tip your bartenders 20% or more. All right, buddy.
Yes.
Again, happy Halloween from Aaron and I. We appreciate you guys joining us here for our 2024 Halloween special. We will see you next week for episode 172.